Folks, when you go to pay gas and when you are struggling to pay your mortgage, to pay your car payment, it's that guy right there. He did that. And you know, this is us. And I'm going to tell you how screwed up things are. So when we were in Ottawa, they gave us problems with porta potties, right? So here, they didn't want to put a porta potty on the property. So what do? You make it portable. So this is a portable porta potty on wheels that is not supposed to be on the grounds, which it's not, so we're good there. And you know, that's the only way we could bring one in. So talk about government overreach and stuff, right?
This video is brought to you by people who like, share, and subscribe to this channel. You can also support my work by buying me a coffee. The Fellowship of Guelphissauga continues, with more tent encampments and less Canada Day celebrations. Across the nation, the Axe the Carbon Tax protesters waved their Canadian flags over highways and border crossings. Unfortunately, there will be less Canadian flag waving in the Shire with the cancellation of the annual Canada Day celebrations at Riverside Park. People were disappointed with the loss of festivities, and the police were sad too, since they couldn't bank more overtime hours watching the event. Meanwhile, the mayor ignored the lack of Canada Day celebrations and instead focused on the lack of affordable housing. He searched for a designated encampment site where he could put all the tents, ruining the view from his office window downtown. Can Carly of Klassen and the Elder Elves do anything about the housing cost crisis? And will you still celebrate Canada Day? From Alberta to Nova Scotia, the carbon tax protesters waved Canadian flags on the side of highways. They were determined to axe the carbon tax and were staying there until it gets done. In Cochrane, Alberta, the Proud Prairie protesters were still rocking it until the carbon tax gets axed. Whereas on the East Coast, their porta potty protest remains strong thanks to the committed Canadians there and their mobile toilets. The Lord of the Liberals tried ignoring them by claiming they were extremist, but that accusation ended up being a flop. He might have to give up his precious carbon tax to make them go away. Meanwhile, back in the Shire, there was less Canadian flag waving and celebrations going on. After 9 years of successfully celebrating Canada Day, the Rotary Club bailed this year on the fireworks. According to their president-elect, Brian Martin, the club could no longer handle the large event with their dwindling membership. Before the pandemic, the Rotary Club had close to 140 members, but now they have less than 80. That type of production took thousands of hours of volunteer work from the Rotary Club of Guelph, as well as some other Rotary clubs to put on. We sort of lost the ability to do that during COVID, Martin explained. Normally the Rotary Club spends $100,000 to $150,000 for the 2-day celebration. People were pissed off by the Rotary Club bailing on Canada Day and looked to the Corporation of the Shire to step in. They should have plenty of room to pull $100,000 from their current $7 million surplus, but they didn't bother to. The Sunshine Listers acknowledged people's disappointment, and yet they said they would not cover the traditional event due to the short time frame of 6 weeks. They said that if there was an organization that wants to rent the park to do fireworks, they're open to talking, but aren't sure how feasible it is with plenty of time. However, that didn't stop people of the Shire from celebrating Canada Day their own way. There was a group willing to step up and fill in for the blank fireworks left by the Rotary Club. A local group called A Little Relief took the torch to make sure Canada Day celebrations still happened at Riverside Park. They're looking for help with running their small community event with activities and donations. If you'd like to help them keep Canada Day alive this year, you can find their group on Facebook and in this video's description below. Back in the mayor's office downtown, he enjoyed a hot curry lunch that he ordered takeout from the dining district. He couldn't dine in like he used to, with 50% less restaurants participating in the dining district compared to last year. The mayor didn't understand why his favorite European-inspired project was disappearing when he had more than doubled the fees for participating in it. Instead of fixing these problems, he ignored the dwindling dining district and disappearing Canada Day celebrations and focused on cleaning up the view from his office window. The Shire's housing cost crisis has spread across town from Riverside Park to outside the mayor's office window. He tried to flex his strong mayor powers to boot them with a bylaw, but that was struck down in court. Like most politicians, he did find a temporary solution by spending lots of taxpayers' money, $600,000 to be exact. That's how much the Corporation of the Shire paid the homeless hotels to house a few dozen people for the winter. But that time and money are all gone now. The minimum wage earners who were lucky enough to get a hotel room for the winter were now back on the streets, looking for a place to pitch a tent. The mayor was ticked off that the view from his office window was getting ruined again by the returning tents. We need to figure something out because this is not working. People living in tents is not appropriate, he shouted. There are people who are willing to do something, but they're waiting on government action, he said ironically as the mayor. The group who were willing to do something about homelessness was a community group looking to build a designated encampment site with tiny homes and shared utilities. The Sunshine Listers estimated that an encampment of 50 tiny homes would have an upfront cost of $2.5 million and ongoing operation costs in the range of $40,000 to $50,000 per unit annually. Like most people who have better mathematics skills than the mayor, the Tiny Homes group challenged the estimates, suggesting it could be done at a lower cost with community volunteers and fundraising. But that wasn't the end of the mayor's problems. He still had to deal with the Axe the Tax protesters pointing out how expensive it is to live in the Shire. The mayor tried to flex his strong powers to cut next year's tax increase from 10% down to 4%, but that wasn't enough. The mayor could cut the tax increase all the way down to 0%, but there's lots of people standing in the way. He faced pushback from the hundreds of Sunshine Listers and police who rely on tax increases each year to fund their $100,000 a year paychecks and cool toys. For instance, the Shire's police spent $822,000 more than planned on overtime hours last year. They said that major crime investigations kept their officers busy through the fall and ballooned pay overtime hours in the process. But even with all these overtime hours, they never solved the major crime of who smashed the 60 bus shelters in town. Maybe they will have better luck next time after they get all their new toys up and running. One of the cool new toys the Shire's police received was several CCTV cameras to be installed downtown. Costing $495,000 in total, they're slowly getting installed around town to monitor crime and your activities. But don't worry, the cameras won't be monitored 24/7 to catch crime, but rather provide a way for police to take a look at what's happening when emergency calls do come in. They can't monitor the cameras all day with their officers banking overtime hours doing other things. For instance, they will be banking hours getting training to fly their new drones around town. To date, 6 officers have been trained to pilot drones, with an additional 22 trained as visual observers. More officers are scheduled to receive training later this year. Can Carly of Klassen and the Elder Elves do anything about the housing cost crisis? And will you still celebrate Canada Day? Stay tuned here to see. This video is brought to you by brighttutoring.ca. Don't let school get in the way of your education. Book a tutoring session today at brighttutoring.ca.